Morning, brothers and sisters, in the Dharma. I know it's a gloomy day. I don't think I can make things any better because the weather is such. Right? But it's not due to karma. As you know, it's one of those things, weather conditions of weather that are very natural. In fact, each time I get up to talk, I only do two things. One is to ask you for donations from the society. Next is to ask you for more blood for the society too. So I will refrain from doing that, otherwise I become a beggar or somebody that will consider me as Count Dracula. But when I was first asked to give a talk on the Buddha's teaching, I really find it a bit difficult to do so because I'm very, very, very new in the Dharma study, because I already took up Dharma study only about 2 years ago. So I really consider myself being a little baby in the path of Buddha's teaching. But anyway, upon reflections of some of my personal experiences, I felt that it would be quite a good idea to share some of my personal experiences in life, some of the things I've gone through, the various religious studies I went through, and then we see for ourselves which is the path we want to take. Okay? So therefore I ask you to judge, not to judge me for what little I'm going to say, but judge that little that will be said. People, especially Malaysians, always have a tendency to believe in the law of things. Often, the actions and the guidance are governed by things that people say. And one of the famous things I always hear is that people say this, people say that. We often accept this truth as the gospel truth, as some Christian put it, the gospel truth, and to follow these things that people say or people do, and to take it as true. We are really considering whether the things that people claim to have been said ages long ago, or things that tends or seems to have tested the test of time, or survived the test of time in all its breadth and width, are really any truth at all. We just accept it as, well, people say it's written in books, and especially so when people start to mention that it's taken from holy books. And often because of all these things that we hear, we do, a lot of things we hear, or we have been indoctrinated, we find that most of the time we have really surrendered ourselves. We start to give up our ability to think. We start to give up our ability to really analyze. We literally surrender ourselves to a lot of things that seems to be true, but really is far from the truth. I can give you a lot of examples. As we move around day to day, right? If you ask somebody for some directions, for example, right, the general way they show you the direction is they're pointing the fingers this way. I really don't understand why people must point it this way or that, all right? Until I start to ask a friend of mine, I say, why do you point this way and not this way? This is very simple. If I point this way, 3 fingers point back at me. I say, so what is wrong with that? Well, one of the ways is escape, is to escape from all blames. I think that's very selfish, right? Why must you point this way and be afraid to commit yourself? You know the directions, or you know where this place is, just point it this way. I think it's more polite to point this way. Because I can understand that only time when you clench your fist is either punch somebody or to hammer something. So this is one of the things that you can see very commonly. Right? But besides that, there are many other things that we do without really thinking deeper. Right? If you just look at yourself, for example, right? For example, ladies, right? They have a lot of things they believe. Men too, they have equal number of misconceptions. Partly because they've learned this from their friends. Right? Partly because they've learned it from their family members, and more so from old folks. I remember that there are certain things that I do put against traditions in my family, and my parents would tell me, look, Our grandfather's time been doing it, so you must do it. I find valid reasons. But the argument is that you have crossed more bridges than you have crossed roads. Right? You have taken more salt than you have taken rice. I think Chinese always say this thing, 食鹽多過你食飯啊，過橋多過你行路。So this is a thing that we always face, and we are really confining ourselves to this. Right? Well, that's not too bad. But can you imagine if things are taken from so-called holy books? I remember when I was young, I was educated in a missionary schools, and often I have to attend chapels, I read catechisms, I read the Bibles. In fact, I take the Bible study as one of my subjects in my examinations. So throughout my school days until very, very recently, I'm 41 years young, by the way, until very recently, I was quite convinced, or rather I was really governed by this type of holy sayings. For example, I repeat this not because I'm going to convert all you into Christianity, but to tell you how I have reacted, due to these holy words. It goes like this: Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptations, but deliver us from all evil. It goes amen, of course. Right. And it was because of this little prayer that often in my life I've gone around doing a lot of things without real understanding. For example, if I make a mistake, the first thing that crosses my mind is that it's the will of God. It's the will of my Father. Because He said, thy will be done. And I live as that, not realizing how I could prevent the repetition of the same mistake. To me, it is that way. I literally surrender myself to it in a sense because I accept it as a truth. I didn't go deeper and to be ashamed of the things I'm doing or to be ashamed of things I've done. Same thing, likewise, when I have done something good, I raise my hand and say, thank you, O Father, for the grace, for your guidance that I am able to do this good thing, and I really say praise to Him. Where's the meaning of this? By right, if I've done something good, I should congratulate myself and do my own confidence. Because the Buddha did say this, right? He said there are four things that we must remember. Right? If there is something bad we have done, right, we should stop it. Right? We must discard away our bad actions. And next thing is to suppress the arising of bad actions. But with all this prayer and all these holy words that seems to have survived the test of time, I just accept them. We're really going deeper and analyze, is it true? When I've done something wrong, is there any way I could prevent it? Or I just accept it as, well, it's the will that will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And I realize. So what does it mean when we really go deeper? I just mentioned, when we know our bad points, the idea is to discard it. But very seldom we can really understand our own bad points. Therefore, the Buddha gives further guidance to say, you should know what is shame. It's very easy for all of us to say, well, I know shame. You only know shame that affects you. For example, shame that concerns you directly. Seldom do you understand shame that does not affect you directly. Let me give you some examples of this. Okay, we are always shameful of our nakedness. But on second thought, some people are not. They are called flashers or exhibitionists. Right? You can find them SS2 in PJ. Well, logically, we should be ashamed of our nakedness. That's one shame because you are involved directly. Second thing, we are embarrassed if we are pulled up to do or to be reprimanded over sin things that are wrong. So when things that affect us directly, we feel shameful. But very often we do a lot of things, we're involved in a lot of actions that we don't really feel shameful about, and they are equally shameful. Why? Because we think we can get away from all this. And it's true. Let me give you an example. For the moment you drive from your house this morning to this temple, do you know how many things you have done that can be considered shameful? Things that you should really avoid? I remember whenever I drive, right, if I put a signal that I want to come out the next lane, there's always a car that's following right behind, not too far behind, and he'll rush forward to block me from coming out. But the idea is stop me from coming out. But he doesn't realize that if I can't come out and there's a slow-moving traffic in front, and if my brakes fail, I'm going to smash into that slow-moving traffic and I can hurt myself. Isn't that an attempt of breaking the first precepts in a way, of hurting me, or perhaps destroying even my life? Look the way we park our cars. Right? We always park for our own convenience. We are not shameful of that because it's for our own convenience. We will not be put up, we will not be reprimanded because we think we can get away with it. And other things like in our office. Right? How many times do you find, or how many items can you find in your home that belongs to the office? Well, we have very wonderful words for this. We call them industrial preparations. Right? We give good words to others, actions that we do that should not be done. Just like a friend of mine who attended a seminar, a conference in a hotel, with beautiful ashtrays and all that, and one day I found those ashtrays in his office. I said, where did you get this? Oh, I flick it. See? He didn't use the word steal because they're shameful. Flick is alright. Okay? Or we have the Malay words gasak, I gasak. All these words seems okay. So these words and these things, right, the man create, man invent, really is to hide away from the shame that he should be aware of. And because of this, we keep on repeating. Well, we assume we get away with it. We assume that it's not shameful. Just like stealing in the shop is called shoplifting, right? And now they put a stop to it. Previously, they were allowed it. Shoplifting is not shop stealing, is it? So we coin beautiful words to hide the things. Now, the next thing I said is that we should realize what is shameful. So if we can really realize things that are shameful, right? And one of the ways to identify things that are shameful is always put the person who's going to get the end results of it into your positions. Put yourself in that positions. You say, if I do this, how would I feel? Right? If I park my car and block the way, how would the other people feel? Right? If I take things from my neighbors, how would he feel? That would give you indications whether it's a shameful act, or it's a bad act, or it's a very glorious act. You can decide for yourself. Right? Next is to be able to stop shame from being carried out. It's very important. Knowing what is shameful is one thing, but to have the ability to stop ourselves from carrying out the shameful act is equally important. Well, this requires constant practice. The next time, let me give you a little advice. The next time you're tempted to take home something from the office, for example, a pen for a son, because you're too lazy to go to the supermarket and buy him one, just think about this. This really don't belong to me. Right? Each time I look at it, it's going to remind me that I took it from the office. Right? And then you will stop. In fact, the Buddha gives a very good guidance in this. He said, be mindful. It's one of his books called Vijnana, this is the Orders of the Monk. He said, well, not directly though, he said how to be mindful. He said, monk, if you see a woman approach you, don't look. If you must look, don't talk. And if you must talk, be mindful. Now that's very good. Just like if we see an object that attracts our sensual feeling, our craving, and our desire, we should look at it carefully and say, what is this? Identify it. Right? Next, we should be very mindful, right? Be mindful that this is not mine. This is the bad actions. Right? This I should not do because it's going to hurt somebody. This I should avoid because it's going to create misery to others. In my line of duties, for example, when we go around the hospitals every Tuesday and Thursday to visit the sick and those who are hospitalized in the hospital and they have very few relatives to see them, we see a lot of people who really can be very selfish. We see how patients take advantage of others. We also see nurses taking advantage of patients. Because to them becomes part and parcel. Right? You scratch my back and I scratch yours. Right? It goes on this way, and find that people start to become blind over things they should not do. So each time when we see ourselves going into actions that is going to create misery, that's going to create problems for others, we should tell ourselves, look, I'm not going to be involved. Well, it requires a lot of training because basically we as humans, through our years and many births of the birth, right, our tendency is to do, we have been learning to do more evils than we have learned to do good. That's the truth, because the moment we become a human being, right, we are actually completely free with all the defilements of life. Right? We have sensual feelings, we have cravings, we have attachments, we have hatred, we have jealousies, we have enmities, right? We blow our tops, right? The Europeans say blow the tops. Right? We blow our tops the moment things does not satisfy us. So these are things we have been so used to. So tendency for us to do evil obviously becomes greater than for the tendency for us to do good. This is a very natural thing. Just like if you learn a new language, let me tell you, the first few words you're going to learn are just 5 words. Right? You seldom learn the proper. When I was studying Italian, for example, to be able to work for a company, which is an Italian company, the first few phrases I learned are not to be mentioned in this temple. Right? Before I start to learn the proper way of saying buongiorno, mi scusa, and so forth. Right? Because to learn things that satisfy our senses, to learn to do things that pleases our mind, is always very much easier. But to do things that calm our mind, to do things to calm our nerves, to go against our sense desires, to go against our attachments, to go against hatred, to go against anger, these are very difficult actions to adopt. Yes, we can suppress our anger under certain conditions. I remember a friend of mine who said he can control himself very well, fine. Everything went on very well for months. He never showed his anger, never showed his temper, very nicely, mindfully he does his work. Until one day somebody came to the office and announced, do you know, Mr. So-and-so, your car has just been banged with somebody. He said, who did it? He forgot about his calmness. He forgot about being controlled. Under given conditions, we are, for example, in this temple here, the conditions here, the atmosphere are very conducive for us to be calm, to be able to control our temple. Or when we have received something good, certainly we feel very generous. Right? If you, for example, come into some fortune, you feel extra generous. But how generous can you be? Right? How long can you be? And when you are generous, what type of motives do you have? Right? So we got to cultivate. Right? And the only way to cultivate this is really to understand the arising of of this greed, this anger, these cravings, this attachment. The moment you recognize it's arising, you've got to cool it down, bring it down again. Bring it down and suppress it. Don't let it come out. Right? And be mindful. If you're mindful from moment to moment, knowing the risings of anger, right, then bringing it down and suppressing it, you find that opportunity for you to commit something that is wrong and not too good, or in fact tantamount to evil, is less. But there are signs that say this: if you're angry, count 10. If you're very angry, count 100. It works, you know. Each time when you're angry, count 10. You want to make it more difficult, count 10 backward. And if you're very angry, count 100. Why we do that is because it gives us an opportunity to reflect on the situations. Give us an opportunity to really consider. We are no saints. Right? Not overnight we can uproot the root of anger, the root of hatred, the root of attachments, cravings and ignorance. But gradually we got to cultivate that. For example, if lawang grows in a garden, if you leave lawang to grow, it will continue to grow. You got to keep on cutting and cutting. But if you really want to get rid of lawang, of course, you will go and dig in the ground, remove the roots. Alright? Now, next verse is, we got, in order to avoid good, or avoid evil, we have to cultivate our good points. If we do something good, right, by right, we should actually congratulate ourselves. Because that will give us self-confidence. In fact, the greatest virtue of a person is self-confidence. You have no self-confidence and you depend on sayings, you depend on some mighty beings, you will forever be dependent on it. Because you will never be able to understand, I did these good things because I have devised ways and means. I've examined it properly and I've done it. Therefore, I deserve to be congratulated. And you congratulate yourself. I always tell my friends, I say, if you've done something good, do not be afraid to suddenly congratulate yourself. Say, hey, well done. Huh? This is good. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Do that. As you get more confidence, you find that each time you look forward to doing good. For example, in a society, wherever, wherever a member does something good, I always congratulate them. I say, well done. Because it's not everyone that can come forward and do this. Same thing, right? We may have a hall of 50 people here. But how many of you are prepared to roll a sleeve and give a pint of blood? Not a pint, 480 cc only. Many of you will give a lot of excuses, oh, I don't feel well, I have a headache. Others will say, my blood count is low, but you have never tested blood count. Others will say, I've not taken my meal yet. We have a lot of reasons. In fact, you have even patients who ask us for blood. We say, don't you have son? Don't you have daughters? Don't you have brothers? Don't you have this? Say, no. Then in comes the son, and I say, is that your son? Yes. Why can't he donate blood? Oh, that's my son. My son can't give blood. So other son can give blood, but not his son or her son. Right? So that's where we talk about areas of selfishness. So each time you do something good, congratulate yourself. Do not be afraid to do that, because as you do that, you start to build up your own confidence and not ego. It's confidence that you start to build. Because you know this is right, you do it. If you do something good and say, thank God for this, for helping me do this good thing, you will always thank God and not thank yourself. Alright? Because if you thank God, you don't congratulate yourself, you don't know you have done something good. The next time you do something bad, you also say, God, why you make me do this? Why you give me this opportunity to do this evil thing? I really didn't want to do it, but you make me do it. You know? Because that will be done. As you forgive us, as you forgive those. So please forgive me, because you say so, right? Next, of course, if we have very few good points, next is to cultivate more and better good points. Right? How do we do that? If we look at improper perspective of the way you live, look at your way in the home, for example. Have you been a good father? Have you been a good mother? Have you been a good brother? Have you been a good sister? yourself in others. Like I say, one of the things is when you look at others is to take a mirror and look at yourself. Look at yourself, how you look when you're angry. You know that when we are angry, we don't look like ourselves. I was told that once when I was very angry, I looked like a piece of bread soaked with water. So next time when you're angry, look at yourself. You see the eyes red, right, and the muscles sore, cramp up. That's how you look. There's also part of rebirth. You look at this, the book called I, The Danger of I. You notice that we are reborn minute to minute, second by second. So when you are reborn from a very nice person to a very angry person, you become an angry ghost. So next time when you want to be angry, think about this. I'm not going to be angry ghost. I'm not going to look ugly, right? Because it's not my way. I like to be always looking calm, very cheerful, right? Because a smile creates more smiles. A cheer brings more cheers. And when I'm kind, I read more kindness to others. People become more friendly towards me. I become more friendly towards others. I'm able to smile genuinely, not just like this, right, showing the teeth which belongs to Colgate advertisements. We should start to look at it. Yes, so today I'm going to develop this smile. At least smile properly when I move around. Okay, when I smile, I mean it. Smile your eyes, your lips. They say smile from ear to ear, from one side of the ear to the other side of the ear. The next you develop your other areas. Well, I'm very hot temper. Bring it down. I will always like to grumble. Be wary of the things you say. You want to grumble, fine, but don't go extend beyond that. Very often, if you look at husband and wife quarrel, right? They start very simply, they quarrel over the subject. Then the things grew bigger and bigger. Soon, they start to talk about the past. No, that's where the big problem starts. Right? They start, last time you did this, the wife said, you did that too. Fine. It will stop there, fine. But it goes beyond. Before I got married to you, my mother said this. Now you get the mother involved. Next, the husband says the same thing. Actually, my father warned me about you. I should have married you. Now the parents are involved. And it goes on and say, you know what my brothers say too. And you get others involved, and eventually when the parents and the brothers and sisters of both parties meet, they refuse to talk to each other because words went to the ears that you said this, you said that. So you must quarrel, retrieve the subject and stop. At the end of it all, forget about it. I do have a lot of quarrels with my wife, with my friends, but I make it a point that we quarrel only for that subject. If there's a point to argue, we argue just the subject. We don't bring in friends, relatives, office mates, right, and so forth, because it's quite pointless for you to do that, and you really say things that you don't really mean. The important thing for us in the way we speak, right, the way we act, is to say things in the right way. There's a very nice English idiom to go this way. Mean what you say, but don't be mean in what you say. There are words. Say what you really mean, and it must be meaningful. And don't be mean in what you're going to say. Very often we use very, very strong words against people. We really ostracize the chap, make him feel so bad. We do what we call character smearing, assassinations. The politicians are very good at that. They call it character assassinations. Another new words being coined by them. Actually, it's really scandal, libel, and so forth. So they use these words, character assassinations, to really run the guys down, bring in things that may not have happened, or things could have happened, but being totally exaggerated. So it's very important that we should really cultivate more gentle way of speaking. Say things that if you really mean it, say it, okay? But don't bring in things beyond what you really want to mean. And from there, you see, if you can bring down your anger, be more kind in your words, naturally extend the point where actions become kinder, where actions become more generous. you start to understand others. This is how you promote the good points in you. And when you start to promote these good points, you find that you are able to go through life in a better way, rather to depend on some power, some supernatural power, or depend on holy books, on holy verses, which really have very little meaning. If you really go down and analyze them. I was a fool for many years, and I can tell you, but a lot of things I do, I really don't understand until I start to really think. Everything bad, there's somebody to take the blame. Everything good, there's somebody to take the blame. What about myself? Does it mean that if I have gone through and attained these promotions, somebody give it to me? Or is it because I work very hard? I work extra hours, read all the diagrams, take out the tools and start to work on the machines and the computers? Or I just so happen to sit around and get promoted? Start to think about that. Do you need to say thanks to anybody? Yes, you do, yourself. You've got to have that confidence in yourself so that next time you can do better. Likewise, when you do something bad, think about it. How did that action take place? Do you seek it out? And what do you do when the action is taking place? Could you have stopped it? Could you have prevented yourself from doing it? That's what the Buddha say. When you see the woman, don't talk. You must talk, be mindful. Why? He say, be careful. As you are not aware of the situations and the arising of sensual desire or sensual pleasures, you should start to look. Hey, be careful. It's coming. Temperature is going up. High blood pressure is going up. You got to bring it down from 160 to 130, then 120, and you feel calm again. Same thing. Each time you come across some problems, you should look at it. Don't depend on some mighty beings to give you the guidance. You yourself is the mightiest beings. You yourself can go through a lot of problems. Think of all the problems that you have encountered in all these years. You could have solved it yourself if you didn't depend on somebody. In fact, most of them you have solved yourself too. But you forgot that you went through thick and thins to get it through. You didn't really need anybody, really. So this is the way where as we cultivate ourselves and as we progress, right, we start to build more confidence, we start to build stronger willpower. And it's really our willpower that determines whether we are going to do good or we're going to do bad. I'm not here to talk about Vipassana today, right, but those who have been practicing this know this. How the rising of our feelings, how the rising of anger, how the rising of thoughts, and how we bring it down, how we analyze things as it should be, and not as they appear to be. Very often we are deceived by things that we say, deceived by things that we see, deceived by things that we hear. And we forgot to use our mind to think. We are the greatest marketing tutor, Dale Carnegie. He said this much: if you want to bring your opponent down, praise him, elate him, bring him up to such a level, and then you slam him down. It's true. When people want to hurt you, the best thing is to first become your friend. Who can hurt you more than your friend? So praise are not that praiseworthy. Sometimes when people praise you, there could be an ulterior motive, and you have to be very careful. For example, if people praise you about your religion, you also have to be careful. Because if you start to be light-hearted, if you start to feel very joyous about this, you say, well, Buddhism is the best religion, and you feel so great, right? In fact, you're away from the path. The Buddha said that actually in this sutta, Sonadanda Sutta, he say, he's a monk, if people praise you about the religions, don't feel light-hearted. You should be mindful. Right? The thing you should do is this: yes, my religion is this and this. My religion is not this and it's not that. Rather than to be happy about it, because there could be a lot of reasons. Same thing when people criticize about your religion, you don't have to be very angry. Because he also say that if people criticize your religion, don't be angry. Right? Just be aware and point out this is not this, that is not that. Because if you react, right, with either joy when people praise you, and you react with anger when people criticize you, you find that you are not on the path to training. Right? So all this leads us actually to one little phrase. And this little phrase is also from the same sutta. It says, righteousness is purified by wisdoms, and wisdoms is purified by righteousness. What is this wisdoms and what is this righteousness? It's really our willpower and our mind. Now, what is wisdoms? Right? Well, a wise man who reads a lot does not mean he's wise. A learned professor does not mean that he's smart. Most of us are textbook reproducer, you know that? When we study for examination, we reproduce textbooks, we reproduce everything and put onto the examination paper and we say we are smart. Not really. Right? We are only smart when we are able to make use of those knowledge that we've gained and excogitate ways to use them for the benefits of others. A lot of scientists too, they're very smart. They find out all the powers of atomic bomb, nuclear energy, and they build bombs and devices to destroy us. Is that smart? Destroying our own beings? It's really not smart. So come back to the subject of wisdoms then. Right? Wisdoms will got to be more purified than that. In fact, if you look at wisdoms, it's the very opposite of ignorance. Right? Things that we do that's right. Things that we do that's humanly perfect. Actions that we carry out that give us a right way of living. Thoughts that come to mind give us the right understanding. We're able to concentrate with the right manner. All these make up the components that goes into wisdoms. Right? Not wisdoms by itself as a word. Right? We have very wise saying. Like I said earlier, I repeated some of this wise saying, but they're really wonderful meaning. Because these wise sayings are just sayings to please the senses, to please you, to build our ego. So when we start to cultivate our righteousness, we start to purify our wisdoms. What does it mean by that again? Now, every time we do something good, we start to remove the bad points from us, from our mind. Like I said earlier, we are born with a lot of defilements because in our various birth, we are so used to all the evil things. Right? We've been gathering and gathering. It's just like a piece of iron, right? You polish it today, it's shining. You stop polishing it today, tomorrow find a rust of the gold. This piece of iron is just like our mind. We are so polluted. So we got to continuously polish this piece of iron, right? And if we want to turn this iron to such a pure element, then we have to temper it. Right? So likewise, our mind. Right? If we don't cultivate our righteousness, that is doing good things, doing things that will give us right understanding, right way of living, right actions, right way of speaking, right? Then we find that the wrong things have to grow. If you don't do things right, you got to do things wrong, right? There are only two ways to it. It's just like in school. You either answer 1 + 1 is equal to 2, or you answer 1 + 1 is equal to 0. Right? As you get 0 marks, you answer otherwise. So you can't do 2. right? Either good or bad. Well, of course, there are times we do neutral when we sit on the bench. Right? So when we start to remove our ignorance, we start to reduce our craving, what happens? We start to increase our generosity. You look at it that way. When we stop harsh speech, we are starting to learn kind words. When we stop wrong actions, we are actually promoting right actions. It is a seesaw. You can either let it go this way or that. Let me give you another example. For example, assuming you have an empty bottle. Now, the bottle is really not empty, right? Students of science will know that the bottle is filled with air. So assuming that the air represents your ignorance, now, as you add a drop of water, which represents your righteousness or your wisdom, you find that there's a little drop, a little bit of air equivalent to the drop of water being dispelled from the bottle. When you add a little bit more water, same amount of air will be dispelled. So therefore, when you fill up the bottle completely, right, you find that all the air will be dispelled. So same thing, if you start to cultivate yourself in such a manner that all your good points are there, you find that there's very little bad points left. Right? Therefore, you say ignorance, right, varies inversely with wisdoms. Right? One goes up, the other must come down. So you have more good actions, more kindness in you, you have less cruelty in you. You're more generous, as you promote more generosity in yourself, you become less selfish. So remember that as you go through life. Then you find that as you start to do more and more good things, you build up your righteousness. Right? As your righteousness takes over, you start to diminish ignorance. Become less ignorant of things. What are your ignorances? Right? To be selfish, right? To be so egoistic about yourself, right? To do things that satisfy your senses, right? To be not able to understand the right things that should be understood. These are things that promote your ignorance. Right? So as you cultivate and you cultivate, you're actually cultivating the mind. Because everything that you do, good or bad, comes from the mind. Therefore I say, really, the will, right, to do good is also in you. The will to do bad is also in you. Not dependent on some beings, not be dependent on some factors, not be depending on books, not dependent on sayings. The important thing is, you got to train yourself. No one is going to help you. As you train and you cultivate your mind, you build a stronger mind. And as your mind becomes stronger or more purified, you start to build greater and attain more purity in yourself. And you don't need to depend. You don't need to surrender yourself to anything. You don't need to surrender to some sayings. You don't need to surrender yourself to some actions of others. You have a tendency to follow others. You don't need to surrender that. You should have your own right to think. You should have your own ability to analyze. Just because people say that doesn't mean they are saying the right thing. There are a lot of fools around. They say, fools on the hill. The fools on the hill is not really a fool. A fool on the hill is a very smart chap because they're left behind all the so-called wise men at the bottom of the hill. Have you read the story, The Fools on the Hill? This is a book about people. Right? There's only one chap who went up to the hill. Right? Actually, he left them. So everybody considers him as a fool, but actually he will see that all the people that he makes with are really fools. So the fool on the hill is really a wise man. So don't follow the crowd. In Malaysia, we have a tendency too. People do this and people do that, we follow. Just like if Ramanam tell you not to do this thing, you say yes. But never mind, my friend is doing it, I'll follow them. We have that tendency. We stop, the moment we stop to think and be mindful and let our mind be in full control, we start to be mindless. Right? We start to follow others' examples. Often we do it because it's a group actions. Often we do it because others are doing it. Well, if everybody does that, then there won't be a Buddha. The Buddha was born in an environment where there are many religions at his time. Many religions in India then, but he now follows them. But he did to a certain extent, but then he realizes that they were not right. He started to move away from them and start to cultivate himself, where he purifies his mind. The same thing in our daily life we should do. In our way of life is that we should continuously cultivate ourselves. Don't depend on anything. Don't depend on the books that you have in your hand. You can read about them, but you must think. Don't let this be the law that guides you. Don't let this be the ultimate, the doctrine, or the supreme whatever to guide you. You must think. Read them, understand them, then think. Does it really make sense to me? Is it the right thing? Use your own mind. Use your own view. Because if you want to do virtuous things, it's the mind again. You want to you commit bad actions, again, it's the mind. That's why I have this discussions as that my view is my virtue and my view is my vice. Because everything comes from the mind. Right? To summarize, I have a little passage here. In fact, I would really advise all of you to buy this book, the Dhammapada. You have a big volume, which is very big, difficult for you to carry, but it's a smaller volume, where it's about this size. It's something you can carry with you. That's a very interesting book. It gives all the wonderful sayings of the Buddha and very meaningful. All you need to do is, the trick of the game is that pick one of the phrases a day. Read it, memorize it, and then think about it. You'll find you can be a very much better person and build a stronger will if you can just understand and read more of this. In fact, this should be a Buddhist Bible in a way. So I'll read from that, which is quite interesting. Because the first part of the Dhammapada, it says here, mind is the forerunner of all evil states. Mind is chief, mind-made are they. If one speaks or acts with wicked mind, because of that, suffering follows one. When you are able to make your mind do good things, you will feel happy, you will feel more comfort, you'll find more solace in your way of life. But if you commit more evil and you let your mind continue to cultivate evil, you'll find that your daily life become more miserable. You have no more confidence in yourself. You're afraid of everything. You're afraid of darkness. You're afraid of people who call on you. You're afraid of almost everything. Even you're afraid to speak, because the moment you speak, you could be talking rubbish. So you got to cultivate and cultivate. And the way to cultivate is take your mind, do certain things that cultivate the mind. Of course, in the Buddhist, in the Buddhist term, we call it meditations. It's important that you do meditations. In fact, it's one of the 4 factors for you. You got to do meditations. And I believe in this temple we have a lot of classes and meditations. Right? There are also other centers where you can attend. When I say meditations, I don't mean just meditation where you sit down and you chant. No, not that type of meditations. Right? I have a friend who belongs to some sect of Buddhism, but his meditation is very simple. He goes very fast on the rosary, blah, 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 and then he says, I'm contented. But he tell everybody he chant a lot, he meditate a lot, but he still have a very bad temper. Right? And he still blame everybody for everything. Right? He blame that his chanting is not good enough, that's why his son is a bit crazy. He blame he blame almost everybody for everything. So that's not the type of meditation I'm talking about. I'm talking about the way of mindfulness. I'm talking about Vipassana meditations, where I think is being taught in this temple. If you don't know where it's being held, you can always ask the brothers and sisters of the youth group here. They will be able to help you with it. So with that, I say thank you to all of you for spending time with me. Right?
can we just share a few minutes, a few seconds, in transferring our merits to all the known and unknown, seen and unseen beings, near or far, wherever they may be. By these virtuous deeds, may our virtuous teachers, Reverend Brahmananda, our dear father and mother, our relatives and friends, virtuous beings, Brahmas, Devas and Nagas, the world protecting Devas, Yama, Devas of the underworld, friends, human, indifferent ones, enemies too. May all beings be happy sharing our merits. May triple happiness be attained now, after death, and final nirvana. Soon may we all gain release from all evil by these meritorious deeds and through this sharing. Soon indeed may we attain to good, to the cutting of cravings, attachments, and all the slowness flux of being or striving for our deliverance. May evils everywhere be destroyed, as one reappears, existence of existence. May they be upright mind, thoughtful wisdoms, purity and energy. And may evils personified smiles now approach us through the power of our actions and energy, and through such powers of our Buddha, the law of supreme embrace. Yeow Lung Buddhas, any of highest lords of the Arya Sangha, even until our final birth, may evils now approach us.